Good morning, class. I'll be continuing with the same chapter. Chapter 5, The Impact of British Rule, page number is 66, and these are the topic which I'm going to discuss with you today. So, this is the concluding part of this chapter. Last class I've explained about the British policy until 1793, and under that topic, the permanent settlement, the rightwise settlement, and the Malware settlement, and the commercial policy of the British I have discussed in the last class. Today I'll be starting with the new topic, exploitation of artisans. Before the British came to India, the Indian rulers and nobles used to give substantial patronage to Indian handicrafts, but following the integration of many Indian kingdoms into British Empire, this patronage diminished and in many cases even absent. As a result, a vast majority of craftsmen were forced to give up their livelihood and look for alternative employment as landless laborers on the farmland or as workers. So before the British came to India, the Indian ruler, even the Indian ruler and nobles, they used to give substantial patron. Substantial means important. They used to give importance in the patronage to Indian handicrafts. They give patronage to Indian handicrafts, but following with the integration. Integration means inclusion. With the inclusion of many kingdoms into the British Empire, the patronage which the nobles and the Indian rulers give the Indian handicrafts were less, and in many cases diminish means less. In many cases it is shown that even they stop giving their patronage. As a result, a vast majority of this, a vast variety of majority of craftsmen, they were forced. These craftsmen were forced to give up their livelihood and look for an alternative employment. As the handicrafts were not sold in the market, so they have to give up their job and look for an alternative employment as landless laborer or in farmland or as a laborer. However, the economic condition was one of extreme poverty. Workers were burdened with problems like low wages, long working hours, and unhygienic living conditions. So, however, after leaving their job after they leave their handicraft jobs, and now they are looking for a alternative employment. So, however, even this, the economic condition of the workers were extremely poverty. These workers were burdened with problem like low wages. They were paid low wages, long working. They have to work for long hours, and even in a very unhygienic condition. According to an estimate, the per capita income in 1947 was 228 rupees per year, which works out to be less than a rupee a day. Moreover, there were unequal distribution of income among the various sections of society. While landlords and factories owners were earning well, laborers and poor peasants live in a miserable life. So, according to the estimate made, the per capita income in 1947 was rupees 228 only, which work out to be less. In one day, it is said that in one day the payment of a worker is less than a rupee. So moreover, there was an unequal distribution of even this income was an unequal distribution of income among as there was various societies, so this income were unequal. So while the landlord and factory owners were earning well, the factory owners and the landlords were earning well, laborers and poor peasants were give less payment and live a very miserable life. Next topic is drain of wealth. Although there was a rapid expansion of foreign trade in the 20th century, as a result, the introduction of railway, better road linkage, and the opening of Suez Canal 1869, there was no improvement of the Indian economy. Although there was an rapid expansion of foreign trade on the there was a rapid growth of foreign trade in the 20th century as a result of the introduction of railways, better roads linkage, and the opening of Suez Canal was the most advantage of 20th century, and it was opened in 1869. There was no improvement, but there was no improvement in the Indian economy. This was because the British government followed only one-side trade policy, which exempted the British good from paying any duty on entering India, but levied high custom duties on Indian goods entering England. People therefore preferred to buy English goods which were cheaper. Indian merchants found it difficult to survive with handloom products made in India, while the British companies made profit and transferred his wealth to India of wealth into Britain. So there was a though the expansion of foreign trade was rapid in the 20th century, but the improvement of Indian economic was very weak. So this is because of the British followed a one-side trade policy, which exempted means free. The British goods were free to they are not paying any interest when paying any tax when their duties are entering in India, but they are levied means charge. They charge this British charge high custom duties on Indian goods on entering on England. So the people therefore preferred to buy British English goods which were cheaper. So Indian merchants found it difficult to survive with handloom product made in India, while the British companies made more profit and the wealth of India were transferred to Britain. Dadabhai Naoroji in his book Poverty and Un-British Rule in India has presented a deep study on this drain of wealth to India. So Dadabhai Naoroji in his book Poverty to Un-British Rule in India had presented presented a deep study on the drain of wealth of India. Next is education policy of British. Education in India was mainly religious in nature and a privilege for the rich and the upper class of society. Therefore, there were pathshalas and madrasas in which a few students were taught by their teacher. Therefore, there were neither any fixed curriculum nor any system of examination. Three subjects, Sanskrit, Persian and mathematics, were very popular. The English East India Company, interested only in trade and its profit, did not take any effort to bring a change in Indian system of education for more than a half of century. So education in India was mainly religious in nature and a privilege, and it was only a privilege for rich and for the upper caste of society. There were pathshalas in that time. There were pathshalas and madrasas in which only few students were taught by the teacher. There were no fixed curriculum nor a system of there were no any system of examinations. Three subjects like the Sanskrit, Persian and mathematics were very popular in that time. So the British East India Company interested only in trade and its profits, and they did not make any effort to change the education system for more than a half century. The company took its first step towards education with the Charter Act of 1813. The company was asked to set aside a sum of 1 lakh rupees on education for 2 decades. Therefore, this money lay untouched, as no census could be reached on the medium of instruction, and on whether it could be spent on whether Western education or traditional learning. So the company first took first step towards education with the Charter Act of 1813. In the Charter 8 of 1813, the company was asked to set aside a sum of rupees 1 lakhs for education, and for 2 decades, therefore, this money lay untouched, and as no census could be reached on the medium of instruction, and on whether it should be, whether they didn't decided whether this money should be spent on whether Western education or traditional education. Lord Macaulay, a law minister in the Governor General Council, was insistent that Western education should be imparted through the medium of English. In 1835, the government decided to impart education in India through the medium of English. The government announced the Indian educated in British schools should be considered for government jobs. So Lord Macaulay, a law minister of Governor General Council, he decided that the Western education should be imparted through the medium of English. So in 1835, the government decided to impart Western education in India through the medium of English language. So the government also announced that Indian educated in British schools they were also given opportunity for government jobs. Next is Wood Dispatch. In 1854, the government declared its intention of creating a properly articulated system of education from a primary to university stage. Sir Charles Wood sent a dispatch to the Governor General of India, Lord Dalhousie, with some recommendation. This is famous as the Wood's Dispatch, also known as Magna Carta of Indian education. So in 1854, the government declared its intention. So in 1854, the government declared its intention of creating they decided to create a properly articulate system of education from, now they are decided to properly articulate system of education from primary to university states. So Sir Charles Wood sent a dispatch to the Governor General of India, Lord Dalhousie, with some recommendations. So this is the famous work of Wood's Dispatch, also known as Magna Carta of Indian education. The recommendation of the Wood Dispatch were setting up education department in the main provinces. So they decided to set this education department in the main provinces. Second one is university to be set up in each of the presidencies towns of Calcutta, Bombay and Madras. So this university should be set up in the presidency towns of Calcutta, Bombay and Madras. College, a private school and college should be given government grants. So even the private schools and college, they were given government grants. A new service called Indian Educational Service was to be introduced, which could recruit teachers for government institutions all over India. So a new service called Indian Education Service was to be introduced, which could recruit teacher for which they recruit teacher for government institution all over India. At least one government school was to open in every district. The last is local language along with English were to be made the medium of instruction at the school stage and school at the college stage. So the local language along with English were to be the medium of instruction at the school stage and English and at the college stage. These were the recommendation made by Wood's Dispatch. Last topic is drawbacks of English education. Introduction of modern education was a mixed blessing. Let us discuss in detail. So introduction of this modern education was a mixed blessing. So first is the growth of education was not uniform at all levels, and more attention was paid to the expansion of high school and college. The growth of education was not uniform at all levels, means from primary school to high school and college, it was not level. So only more attention were paid to expansion of high school and colleges. Next is primary schools suffered because of lack of funds. Since English was the medium of instruction, common people did not benefit from it. As primary schools suffered because of lack of funds. Since English was the medium of instruction and common people did not benefit from it. The promoters of English education wanted to create a class of India who would be English in their thinking and habits. The vast masses still remained illiterate, while the spread of education was limited to the middle and upper classes. So the promoter of English education wanted to create a class of Indian who would be English in would be English in thinking and habits. The vast masses still remained illiterate, while the spread of education was limited in the upper middle class, to the middle and the upper middle class. The British did not pay attention to the education of women or promoting higher studies in science and technology. Only 3 medical colleges were set up in Calcutta, Madras and Bombay, with admission being restricted to Europeans. So the British, even they did not pay attention to the education of women at the time. So promoting higher studies in science and technology, only 3 colleges were set up in Calcutta, Madras and Bombay, with admission while this admission were restricted to Europeans. However, the English education did not bring into contact with rational and scientific ideas or with development in science and technology. So, however, this English education did not bring Indians into contact with the Indians were not contact with rational and scientific ideas or with development in science and technology. Indians became familiar with the writings of great philosophers such as Rousseau, Voltaire and Thomas Paine, which inspired the Indian movement. So the Indians became familiar with the writings of the great philosophers such as Rousseau, Voltaire and Thomas Paine, which inspired the Indian national movement. English emerged as a common language among educated Indians, which helped to spread new ideas among people living in different parts of India and created bonds of unity among them. So this English rise as the common language among educated Indians. So this English language rise as a common language among the educated Indians, which also helped them to spread new ideas. This English language helped them to spread new ideas among people living in different parts of India, and this English language created bonds of unity among them. So this is the drawbacks of English education. So that's all for today. Thank you.